Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
All right, so you guys want to dive into something pretty heavy.
Mhm.
You want to look at why figures like Donald Trump and the Kennedys are seen as threats to this shadow government.
Yeah, it's a popular topic.
We're going deep today.
Mhm.
We're going deep with an interview with Kevin Shipp,
Oh, yeah.
former CIA officer turned whistleblower. So we're going to lay out his claims. We're going to lay out his observations.
Sounds good.
But, it's going to be up to you guys to draw your own conclusions.
Absolutely.
So,
Is how we do it.
okay, so what makes this Shipp's take on this so compelling is that, he's not just some guy speculating,
Right.
This guy's been inside the system.
He's been there.
He's worked it.
Yeah, he started as a biologist, but ended up a CIA
A
analyst.
CIA analyst.
Yeah, even specialized in polygraph interrogation.
Polygraph interrogation. I mean,
That's experience alone.
yeah.
Gives you a glimpse into, the mindset of the CIA.
The mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's wild how he got recruited, too.
Yeah, how'd he get in?
He's talking to a friend
Mm-hmm.
at a party. The friend's like, hey, you ever thought about working for the agency?
Right.
And Shipp's like, well, what's that entail? Next thing you know, intense vetting process.
Oh, yeah.
Polygraphs.
Background checks.
The whole 9 yards, and he thinks he's blown it.
Right.
It's like during the polygraph, he confesses everything. He's like, well, that's it. Game over.
Yeah, honesty is the best policy.
But they hire him.
Right.
They hire him.
That's a key point, I think. That shows they're looking for a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Someone who will follow orders, even if it means going against their own conscience,
Their own conscience.
And that becomes so crucial when we talk about his later disillusionment.
His disillusionment. All right, so let's fast forward a bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about his time on William Casey's protective detail. So, Shipp's working security for the CIA director, right? During a period allegedly rife with covert operations.
Mhm.
And one event in particular it sticks with him. A
Okay.
car bombing that tragically killed innocent women and girls.
Wow.
And Shipp was there. He was part of the security detail when this happened.
This bombing, though, it's like a stark example of what Shipp calls plausible deniability.
Plausible deniability.
It's the idea that higher-ups can orchestrate events without direct knowledge, keeping their hands clean while, lower-level operatives carry out the dirty work.
Right.
Shipp claims he was completely unaware of the true nature of this operation while serving on Casey's detail.
And it raises such a chilling question, right? How much do even those within the intelligence community really know about what's going on?
Exactly.
And how can anyone be held accountable
Yeah, right.
if responsibility is so skillfully diffused?
Yeah,
It's almost like a hall of mirrors,
right.
You can't even...
It's designed that way.
Yeah.
You can never really tell who's pulling the strings.
So this whole culture of secrecy,
Yeah.
it profoundly impacts Shipp.
Understand.
And later on, he joins a counterterrorism unit, essentially the CIA's version of a tier 1 team.
Wow.
The best of the best, highly trained, dangerous missions.
Right.
And remember, this is a guy who almost died as a child.
Right.
So fear wasn't really a factor for him,
Right.
He was fearless.
He had already faced death.
But something shifts within him. He starts to question
Yeah.
the morality of his actions, especially when his work involves deception and manipulation.
Espionage.
Yeah.
It takes its toll.
Outright lies.
The lies.
It's almost like he had this crisis of faith.
Yeah.
He was a devout Christian,
Right.
yet he found himself immersed in this world that often contradicted his values.
And that inner turmoil ultimately led to his break from fieldwork. It wasn't a sudden decision, but a gradual realization, this life was taking a toll on his soul.
But even though he stepped back from field work, he couldn't stay silent when he uncovered this massive security vulnerability
Right.
that put undercover agents at risk.
Right.
And this is where the whistleblower part of the story kicks in.
Let's hear it.
So he discovers this flaw in the CIA's computer systems
Oh, wow.
that could potentially allow foreign intelligence agencies, even terrorist groups, to identify covert operatives.
That's a huge risk.
The risk was enormous.
Right.
I mean, people could die.
Absolutely.
So he tries to report it, following the chain of command.
Right.
But he's met with resistance and cover-ups.
Oh, no.
It's like they were more concerned with protecting the agency's reputation than the lives of their own people.
Wow.
He was essentially told to drop it.
Real
or face
man.
the consequences.
Wow.
But he wouldn't back down,
Good for him.
eventually leaking the report to the State Department,
Taking it outside.
which led to a global investigation
Wow.
and the CIA's response. Retaliation, plain and simple.
Really?
They assign him to a contaminated house, which severely impacts his family's health.
Oh, no.
They made it clear whistleblowers wouldn't be tolerated.
So this experience solidifies Shipp's belief that a shadow government operates within the intelligence community.
A shadow government.
He describes it as like a group at the very top, maybe the top 20% of the CIA.
Top 20%.
That acts with little regard for democracy or human life.
And he argues that this group uses false flag events.
False flag events.
Incidents deliberately staged to deceive the public and achieve specific goals.
Mm-hmm.
And he claims he witnessed this firsthand with that car bombing, remember?
Yeah.
And he sees a pattern of similar events throughout history.
Now, this is where we get into the heart of why figures like Trump and the Kennedys are seen as threats to this supposed shadow government.
Yeah.
Shipp argues that they represent a challenge to the status quo.
A challenge to the status quo.
A disruption to the carefully constructed narratives this shadow government relies on.
Okay, so let's start with Trump.
All right, let's talk Trump.
He's the ultimate outsider, right?
Right.
Someone who campaigned on draining the swamp,
Draining the swamp.
challenging the establishment. His rhetoric directly targeted what many perceive as like the deep state.
The deep state.
This network of bureaucrats and intelligence officials who operate independently of elected officials.
Right.
And his actions, like trying to declassify documents related to the Russia investigation and openly criticizing intelligence agencies, these were seen as direct attacks on the power structure.
Absolutely.
This made him a target.
It made him a target for sure.
Shipp claims that Trump's attempted assassination was not the act of a lone wolf,
Yeah.
but potentially orchestrated by forces seeking to eliminate a threat to their power.
Eliminate the threat.
He points to the unusual background of the shooter, Thomas Crooks. This guy had encrypted overseas bank accounts
What?
and no history of violence.
That's weird.
It's suspicious. He also finds it suspicious that every major news network was covering the Trump rally, where the assassination attempt took place, despite their generally negative coverage of Trump.
Interesting.
He suggests this could indicate foreknowledge of the event.
Knowledge.
And then there's the immediate attempt to blame Iran,
Right.
based on what was claimed to be credible intelligence. Shipp dismisses this as a deliberate distraction,
The distraction.
a way to shift blame away from potential domestic involvement.
Okay, so how about the Kennedys?
Yeah, so the Kennedys, both John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy, they present a slightly different case.
Okay.
They were insiders, right?
Part of the elite.
Part of the political elite.
Yeah.
But they challenged the system from within.
From within.
They were vocal critics of the military-industrial complex and the CIA's covert operations.
Right.
They questioned the Vietnam War,
Right.
sought to limit the CIA's power,
Limit the power.
and championed a more peaceful and just world.
Interesting.
And in Shipp's view, their assassinations were not merely tragedies, but deliberate acts
Deliberate.
to eliminate figures who threatened the shadow government's control over the narrative of American history
The narrative.
and its global agenda.
So he believed that both Kennedy assassinations are they're riddled with inconsistencies,
Inconsistent.
unanswered questions, suggesting a cover-up to protect those who orchestrated the killings.
He also points to the alleged involvement of MKultra,
M-Culture.
the CIA's infamous mind control program,
Right.
in these events.
Wow.
Shipp believes individuals were programmed or manipulated to carry out these acts, citing examples like Sirhan, Robert Kennedy's assassin.
Right.
This guy displayed susceptibility to hypnosis and had no memory of the shooting.
Wow.
He even brings up Tom O'Neill's investigation
Tom O'Neill, yeah.
into the Manson murders, which uncovered potential links between a doctor treating Charles Manson
Right.
and the M-Culture program.
The M-Culture program.
And then there's John Lennon's assassin, Mark David Chapman,
Right.
who Shipp claims was visited in prison by a doctor involved with M-Culture
What?
and exhibited erratic behavior afterward.
Wow.
Now, these are serious claims,
Serious claims.
and they require careful consideration.
Absolutely.
But Shipp's perspective, as someone who is embedded in the intelligence community,
Right.
it offers a unique and disturbing lens
A unique lens.
through which to view these events.
I agree.
compels us to question everything we think we know about power, truth, and the forces that shape our world.
That's a lot to think about.
So we've laid out Shipp's claims about how figures like Trump and the Kennedys pose a threat to a potential shadow government. But this is just the beginning.
Right.
We need to dig deeper into the specific evidence he presents and explore the implications of his claims. Stay with us as we continue this deep dive.
To really get why Shipp thinks figures like Trump and the Kennedys are targeted, we got to look at how he thinks the shadow government operates.
Right.
He says they thrive on secrecy,
Secrecy.
and using propaganda to manipulate the public.
And who better to explain those tactics than someone who, lived and breathed that world for years? Shipp describes the CIA's obsession with secrecy as almost cult-like.
Cult-like.
Agents are indoctrinated to believe that loyalty to the agency comes before everything else.
Oh, wow.
Even their own conscience.
And that blind loyalty is often exploited.
Exploited how?
Shipp claims many CIA operatives are patriotic.
Yeah.
They believe they're serving their country.
Right.
But they're also pawns, manipulated by those at the top who have a very different agenda.
He talks about how the agency uses psychological techniques to, mold agents.
Yeah.
Making them feel like they're part of this elite group
Right.
with access to secret knowledge and power.
It creates a dangerous us versus them mentality.
Yeah, us versus them.
Right. That breeds unquestioning obedience and allows them to justify actions that might otherwise seem morally reprehensible.
Morally reprehensible.
And if anyone starts asking too many questions or uncovers something they shouldn't,
Yeah.
they're silenced.
Shipp learned that the hard way.
Right. He did.
When he tried to expose that security vulnerability, instead of being praised for his vigilance, he was threatened and ostracized.
His experience exposes the dark side of whistleblowing,
Yeah.
especially within the intelligence community.
You don't like it.
They have ways of dealing with dissent.
What kind of ways?
Legal threats, smear campaigns, even physical intimidation.
Wow.
They'll use whatever it takes to protect their secrets.
And it's not just about controlling information within the agency.
Right.
Shipp believes the CIA also exerts significant influence over the media,
The media.
using journalists to spread their narratives and discredit anyone who challenges them.
He refers to Operation Mockingbird,
Operation Mockingbird.
an alleged CIA program that used journalists to disseminate propaganda during the Cold War.
During the Cold War.
While the CIA claims it was shut down, Shipp believes similar tactics are still in play.
I mean, think about it.
Think about it.
We often see remarkable consistency in media narratives, particularly around events involving national security. It makes you wonder if there's a coordinated effort to shape public perception.
Makes you wonder.
Shipp had this telling encounter with the Washington Post.
Oh, Washington Post.
When he tried to share his story, the reporter kept pushing for classified information,
Really?
almost trying to trap him.
Wow.
And it turned out the Post had contacted the CIA about Shipp,
Oh.
confirming his suspicions about the media's cozy relationship with the intelligence community. He left that experience feeling betrayed and even more convinced that the media plays a key role in protecting the shadow government.
All right, so let's circle back to why figures like Trump and the Kennedys are seen as such threats.
Okay.
Shipp argues that it's because they disrupt the narratives and power structures that this shadow government relies on.
They disrupt the narratives.
Yeah. Trump, with his drain the swamp rhetoric and outsider status,
Right.
was a direct challenge to the deep state's control over the political system.
Direct check.
His attacks resonated with those who felt the government no longer served the people, but had become a self-serving machine.
And remember, his actions, trying to declassify documents, openly criticizing intelligence agencies.
Oh, yeah.
These were seen as direct assaults on their power and secrecy.
Direct assaults.
No wonder he became a target.
Shipp believes that Trump's attempted assassination was more than just the act of a lone wolf.
More than a lone wolf.
He suggests it was orchestrated by those who saw Trump as a threat to their power.
A threat to their power.
The shooter's unusual background, the media presence at the rally, the immediate attempt to blame Iran.
Right.
Shipp sees it all as part of a larger, more sinister plan.
The Kennedys, while not outsiders like Trump, still posed a different kind of threat.
Different kind of threat.
Right.
They were part of the political elite,
They were.
but challenged the system from within.
Both John F. and Robert Kennedy were vocal critics of the military-industrial complex and the CIA's covert actions. They questioned the Vietnam War, wanted to curb the CIA's power, and pushed for a more just and peaceful world.
They challenged the very foundation of this shadow government's agenda.
And Shipp believes their assassinations were not just tragic events, but calculated moves to silence those who dared to question the established order.
Calculated moves.
He points to the numerous inconsistencies and unanswered questions surrounding both Kennedy assassinations,
Right.
fueling suspicion of a cover-up.
And remember MKUltra, the CIA's mind control program.
Uncultured.
Shipp believes it played a role in these events, claiming individuals were programmed or manipulated to carry out the assassinations.
Programmed or manipulated.
He points to Sirhan's lack of memory and susceptibility to hypnosis as evidence.
It's a chilling thought that these events weren't just random acts of violence, but calculated moves by powerful forces operating in the shadows.
Chilling.
Shipp perspective challenges us to think critically about the information we're given
Think critically.
and consider alternative explanations, even if they seem far-fetched.
After all, history is full of examples of governments lying to their people, covering up wrongdoing, and manipulating events to achieve their aims.
And in an age of information overload,
Mm-hmm.
it's more important than ever to be able to discern truth from fiction and to hold those in power accountable.
So as we move forward with this deep dive, let's examine some historical events that Shipp believes demonstrate the shadow government's willingness to manipulate events and sacrifice lives to achieve its objectives.
Okay.
He sees a pattern of orchestrated crises throughout history,
Orchestrated crises.
all designed to increase their control and power.
Okay, so when it comes to 9/11, Shipp really
He goes there.
he goes there.
Yeah.
He uses his investigative background to dissect the official story,
Mm-hmm.
and some of his points are hard to dismiss,
They are.
even if the overall claim is controversial.
Remember, Shipp isn't just tossing around conspiracy theories.
Right.
He's applying his knowledge of CIA tactics and how information is controlled to analyze what happened that day.
He brings up things like the lack of wreckage at the Pentagon and the seemingly impossible flight maneuvers of the planes.
Right.
Even experienced pilots have questioned those aspects.
Yeah.
And then there's the collapse of Tower 7.
Tower 7.
Which still fuels debate to this day.
It does.
Shipp sees these inconsistencies,
The inconsistency.
along with the redacted pages in the 9/11 Commission report dealing with Saudi Arabia,
Right.
as evidence of a deliberate cover-up.
A cover-up.
He believes the true forces behind 9/11 had far greater resources and a much darker agenda than we've been led to believe.
And this is where he connects it to a larger pattern, right?
Yeah.
He sees 9/11 as another example of a manufactured crisis.
Another manufactured crisis.
Just like the Gulf of Tonkin incident we discussed earlier.
Gulf of Tonkin.
Events orchestrated to manipulate public opinion and justify specific actions.
Exactly. Shipp points to other historical events like Pearl Harbor and the Oklahoma City bombing. He believes these incidents, often attributed to lone wolves or foreign actors, were actually exploited to increase government power.
Increase government power.
Often at the expense of individual liberties.
That's a chilling thought.
It's a chilling thought.
That powerful forces might be willing to orchestrate tragedies and capitalize on fear to advance their own agendas.
But Shipp doesn't want us to be paralyzed by fear, right?
Yeah.
He wants us to be informed, to think critically,
Think critically.
and to hold those in power accountable.
He urges us to dig deeper, to research these topics ourselves and not just accept the official narratives.
Yeah.
There are investigative journalists doing great work in this area.
Absolutely.
And he encourages people to seek out their findings.
He reminds us that staying silent and passively accepting information makes us complicit in this system of control.
Complicit.
But by questioning, investigating, and speaking truth to power, we can start to dismantle the structures that allow these shadow forces to operate unchecked. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.
If you enjoyed this episode of While We Were Distracted, be sure to watch the video that inspired it. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.